The screenshot is what haunts me. Not the empty nursery we'd spent months preparing. Not the baby shower with 3 guests and gift cards from strangers. Not even the hollow feeling of realizing someone you love has been stealing your joy for months. It was that screenshot from Amazon showing 47 items from my baby registry delivered to an address I'd never seen, with my sister's name on every single order. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The same sister who'd been telling everyone how selfish I was for expecting gifts while she was struggling to make ends meet. The same sister who'd convinced half our family to boycott my shower because I was being too demanding with my registry. The screenshot showed the truth in black and white numbers and delivery dates, and it changed everything I thought I knew about family loyalty. My name is Sarah Chen, and I'm about to tell you how one Amazon purchase history destroyed 15 years of sisterhood and revealed the person I trusted most was the one stealing my happiness. When David and I announced our pregnancy at Mom's birthday dinner last spring, the reaction was everything I'd hoped for: tears, hugs. Immediate planning for the nursery we'd dreamed about since our wedding 3 years ago. I'm a marketing coordinator at a tech startup, David works in accounting, and we'd been trying for 2 years. This baby felt like a miracle wrapped in morning sickness and cravings for pickles at midnight. My sister Melissa was the loudest cheerleader that night. She grabbed my hands across the dinner table, her eyes bright with what I thought was genuine excitement. "I'm going to spoil this baby rotten," she declared, already making plans for shopping trips and nursery decorating sessions. "This little one is going to have the best aunt in the world." I should have noticed the way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Should have caught the slight edge in her voice when she asked how much we'd already spent on baby stuff. Should have seen the calculation behind her enthusiasm. But I was glowing with hormones and happiness, too caught up in finally becoming a mom to notice the storm brewing in someone I'd trusted my whole life. Melissa had always been the artistic one in our family. While I went to college and built a career, she'd bounced between photography gigs, freelance graphic design projects, and what Mom generously called finding herself. At 31, she was still living in a studio apartment, still borrowing money from our parents, still treating every family gathering like a therapy session about how unfair life was to people with creative souls. I'd always been protective of her, probably too protective. When she needed help with rent, I'd Venmo her money without hesitation. When she got rejected from art shows or lost clients, I'd listen to hours of venting and offer encouragement. When boyfriends broke her heart, I'd show up with ice cream and tissues. I thought we were close. I thought she genuinely cared about my happiness. The registry was my favorite part of pregnancy after feeling the baby kick for the first time. David and I spent entire weekends researching the safest car seats, the softest blankets, the most practical strollers. I read reviews obsessively, compared prices across different sites, and finally settled on Amazon because of their return policy and fast shipping. We wanted everything to be perfect for our little girl. I shared the registry link with family and close friends about 2 months before my due date, right around the time we started planning the baby shower. Mom was helping coordinate everything, and I was excited to celebrate with the people who mattered most. David's family was flying in from Portland. My college friends were planning to drive up from San Francisco. Even my grandmother, who rarely left her house anymore, promised to be there. That's when Melissa started changing. It began with small comments that felt like tiny paper cuts. She'd look at items on my registry and sigh dramatically. "Wow, this crib costs more than my rent," she'd say, loud enough for everyone to hear. Or she'd scroll through my carefully curated list and shake her head. "I just don't understand why babies need so much stuff. We grew up fine without half this junk." When I tried to explain that David and I had saved specifically for these purchases, that we'd chosen items based on safety ratings and reviews, she'd roll her eyes. "It's just so excessive, Sarah. Some people are struggling to buy groceries, and you're asking for a $400 stroller." The criticism stung because it was coming from someone whose financial struggles I'd personally helped with dozens of times. But I told myself she was just feeling left out, maybe worried about affording a gift. I even offered to add some less expensive items to the registry, thinking it would help her feel more included. Instead, the comments got worse. At Mom's house one Sunday, Melissa loudly announced that she thought baby registries were, quote, basically begging, and that, quote, people used to just be grateful for whatever they got. When our cousin Ashley mentioned buying something from my registry, Melissa launched into a 15-minute speech about how consumer culture was ruining authentic relationships and turning babies into excuses for materialism. I started dreading family gatherings. Every conversation seemed to circle back to how unreasonable my expectations were, how much babies didn't actually need the things I'd registered for, how disappointed she was in my new priorities. David started making excuses to skip dinners at Mom's house because he couldn't stand watching me come home deflated and hurt. The worst part was how she'd frame her criticism as concern for my well-being. "I just worry you're setting yourself up for disappointment," she'd say with this fake sympathetic tone. "What if people can't afford these expensive items? What if your shower is awkward because everyone feels judged by your registry?" She started telling other family members about her concerns too. Suddenly, cousins who'd seemed excited about the baby were making comments about how young people today expect too much and asking if I really needed all that fancy stuff for one baby. My Aunt Patricia actually called to suggest I should register at Target instead of Amazon because it would be more considerate of people's budgets. The campaign was subtle but effective. By the time shower invitations went out, I could feel the shift in family dynamics. People were still coming, but the enthusiasm had dimmed. Instead of excitement about celebrating our baby, conversations felt tense and loaded with unspoken judgment about my registry choices. 3 weeks before the shower, my purchase notifications from Amazon suddenly stopped. I'd been getting emails almost daily as people bought gifts, watching the registry slowly empty with growing excitement. Then nothing. For days, no purchases, no notifications, no indication that anyone was thinking about our baby shower at all. I checked the registry obsessively, refreshing the page to see if maybe the notifications were just delayed. Everything was still there, untouched, waiting. Meanwhile, Melissa was posting pictures on social media of shopping trips and Amazon deliveries, talking about exciting projects and secret plans that were keeping her busy. When I mentioned the sudden silence to Mom, she got defensive in a way that surprised me. "People are probably just waiting until closer to the shower," she said quickly. "You know how procrastinators work. Besides, maybe some people are buying things that aren't on your registry. Surprises can be nice too." But I had that sick feeling in my stomach that something was wrong. The same feeling I'd had in high school when I suspected someone was spreading rumors about me, when something felt off but I couldn't quite prove it. David tried to reassure me that everything would work out, that people probably were just waiting until the last minute, but even he seemed concerned about the sudden radio silence from my family. 2 days before the shower, I was tracking a package David had ordered for the nursery when I noticed something strange in our Amazon account. Under your orders, there were items I didn't recognize, deliveries to addresses I'd never seen, purchases made with what looked like gift cards or credits I'd never authorized. That's when I started digging deeper, following a trail of digital breadcrumbs that would lead me to the most devastating betrayal I'd ever experienced. The first clue was a baby monitor I'd never ordered, delivered to an address on Maple Street that meant nothing to me. According to the order details, it had been purchased with a gift card credit and marked as delivered 3 days earlier. My hands shook as I clicked through more unfamiliar transactions, each one revealing items from my carefully curated registry sent to places I'd never been. A convertible crib to an apartment complex across town, organic cotton onesies to a house I didn't recognize, the premium stroller I'd researched for weeks, delivered to what looked like a residential address with someone else's name on the order. Every single item had been purchased using gift card balances, store credits, or promotional codes that somehow traced back to my account. I called Amazon customer service with my heart hammering against my ribs. The representative, a patient woman named Jennifer, walked me through the purchase history with growing concern in her voice. "Ma'am, it appears someone with access to your account has been redirecting gift purchases intended for your registry. The billing shows these items were bought by different people, but the shipping addresses were all changed after purchase." The methodology was sickeningly clever. When family members or friends bought gifts from my registry, Melissa had somehow gained access to redirect those packages to various addresses. all while maintaining the appearance that my registry was being fulfilled. The original purchasers received confirmation emails showing successful delivery, so they had no idea their gifts never reached me. Jennifer helped me pull up a comprehensive report of every transaction tied to my registry over the past 6 weeks. The scope of the theft was breathtaking. 47 items totaling over $3,000, all diverted from their intended destination. Car seats, high chairs, baby clothes, bottles, blankets, toys, a breast pump. Even the rocking chair David and I had picked out together during a romantic afternoon of nursery planning. The addresses were scattered across our city, but when I started mapping them, a pattern emerged. 3 locations appeared repeatedly: an apartment on Maple Street, a house on Oak Avenue, and a storage unit facility downtown. I recognized none of them, but something about the frequency made my stomach clench with a terrible suspicion. I grabbed my laptop and started cross-referencing the addresses with social media. The Maple Street apartment belonged to someone named Marcus Rodriguez, who I didn't know until I saw him tagged in one of Melissa's recent Instagram posts. They were holding hands at a coffee shop, both grinning at the camera. The caption read, "New adventures with my favorite person." My sister had a secret boyfriend, and apparently they were furnishing their life together with gifts intended for my unborn daughter. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The Oak Avenue house belonged to her friend Rachel, someone I'd met a few times at family gatherings. Rachel had been vocal about wanting to start a family with her husband, posting frequently about their fertility journey and how expensive baby preparation was becoming. The storage unit was rented under Melissa's name, paid for with a credit card that showed regular monthly charges going back 4 months. I drove to the storage facility first, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles ached. The teenage attendant at the front desk was surprisingly helpful when I explained I needed to verify my sister's unit number for insurance purposes. Unit 247 was in the back row, secured with a combination lock that I couldn't crack, but the small window let me peer inside. Mountains of baby gear stacked floor to ceiling. I recognized the elephant print sheets I'd specifically chosen to match our nursery theme. The wooden toys David's mother had specially ordered from a handcraft store in Vermont, a bassinet that had taken me hours to research, looking for the perfect balance of safety features and aesthetic appeal. Everything was organized like a store, with price tags still attached and items sorted by category. Clothes hung on portable racks. Larger items like car seats and high chairs were lined up against the walls. It looked like Melissa had been operating some kind of resale business, preparing to flip stolen baby gifts for profit. The drive to Marcus's apartment felt surreal, like I was moving through someone else's nightmare. The building was nice, much nicer than the studio Melissa claimed she could barely afford. When I knocked on the door, a man I recognized from the Instagram photos answered with a confused smile. "You must be Sarah," he said warmly. "Mel's mentioned you so much." "I'm Marcus. She's not here right now, but come in, come in." The apartment was furnished with items from my registry. The glider chair, where I'd planned to nurse my daughter, sat in their living room, next to a bookshelf displaying the baby books I'd selected for reading to my child. In the kitchen, bottles and sippy cups I'd chosen were arranged in a dish drainer, as if they'd been recently washed and used. Marcus must have noticed my stunned expression, because his welcoming demeanor shifted to concern. "Is everything okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Where did you get all this baby stuff?" I managed to ask, my voice sounding strangled and far away. His face lit up with pride. "Mel's been amazing. She found this incredible deal on almost everything we needed for when we have kids. Got it all at like 70% off retail through some connection she has. We've been storing it until we're ready to start trying, but she insisted we set up the space now so we could practice and make sure everything works properly." The room spun around me. Melissa hadn't just stolen my gifts. She'd convinced her boyfriend that she'd found some miraculous deal on thousands of dollars worth of baby equipment. She'd been playing house with items intended for my daughter, using my registry to furnish her fantasy of domestic bliss with a man I'd never heard her mention. I pulled out my phone and showed Marcus the Amazon purchase history Jennifer had helped me compile. His face went pale as he scrolled through the delivery addresses, the dates, the item descriptions that perfectly matched the contents of his apartment. "This can't be right," he he whispered, but his voice carried the weight of someone who was starting to piece together a horrible truth. She said her sister was being ridiculous about expensive baby gear, that you'd registered for way more than you needed, and family members were asking her to help return stuff because they felt guilty about the cost. The betrayal had layers I was still uncovering. Not only had Melissa stolen thousands of dollars worth of gifts, but she'd built an elaborate lie that painted me as the villain in our family drama. She'd convinced Marcus that I was some kind of entitled monster who'd registered for excessive amounts of baby gear, then manipulated family members into feeling guilty about the expense. Marcus helped me load the items from his apartment into my car, his hands shaking as he apologized over and over. "I had no idea," he kept saying. "She showed me pictures of your registry and said it was causing problems in your family because people couldn't afford everything you'd asked for. She said she was trying to help by finding alternatives and returning things you'd already gotten duplicates of." The story was so intricate, so carefully constructed, that I almost admired the planning that had gone into it. Melissa had identified the exact guilt points that would make people sympathetic to her narrative while positioning herself as the helpful sister trying to manage an awkward family situation. As I drove to Rachel's house with a car full of recovered baby items, my phone started buzzing with text messages. Marcus had clearly contacted Melissa about my visit, and she was in full panic mode. The messages started apologetic and escalated to desperate, then angry, then threatening. "Sarah, there's been a huge misunderstanding. I can explain everything. Please call me before you do something we'll both regret. You're ruining my relationship and destroying our family over a stupid misunderstanding. If you think you can humiliate me like this, you're gonna be very sorry." Rachel wasn't home, but her husband Kevin answered the door with their toddler balanced on his hip. The confusion on his face was immediate when I introduced myself as Melissa's sister and asked about the baby items that had been delivered to their house. "Oh man," Kevin said, running his free hand through his hair. "This is really awkward. Mel said you guys had gotten into a fight about money, and that you'd asked her to return a bunch of duplicate gifts for store credit. She offered to let us have some of the stuff since we're trying for number 2 and money's tight right now." Their nursery was a shrine to my stolen registry. The crib I'd dreamed about assembling with David was already set up with the matching changing table and dresser. Mobile hanging above it featured the same safari animals I'd picked out after hours of online research. Even the nightlight was the exact model I'd added to my registry after reading reviews about its soothing projection patterns. Kevin helped me pack everything back into boxes, his embarrassment palpable as he realized he'd been an unwitting participant in my sister's scheme. "She made it sound like you were having money problems, and that your family was trying to help you return things without hurting your feelings," he explained, while carefully dismantling the crib. "Rachel felt terrible about your situation and wanted to help by taking some of the burden off your hands." The cruelest part was how Melissa had weaponized our family's love and concern, turning their desire to help into a tool for her theft. She'd convinced people that I was in financial distress, while simultaneously portraying me as materialistic and demanding. Everyone thought they were helping solve a family crisis that existed only in her imagination. By evening, I had recovered most of the stolen items, but the emotional damage felt irreversible. My phone continued buzzing with increasingly frantic messages from Melissa, who'd apparently realized that her carefully constructed lies were unraveling faster than she could manage. The final text came just before midnight. "You've destroyed everything. I hope you're happy." But I wasn't happy. I was hollow, exhausted, and preparing for a baby shower that now felt tainted by betrayal. Tomorrow, I'd have to face my family and explain why half the registry had suddenly reappeared, why my sister was missing, and how someone I'd trusted with my deepest joys had turned them into her personal shopping spree. The hardest part was accepting that the person I'd defended, supported, and loved unconditionally for 30 years had been systematically stealing from me while convincing everyone around us that I was the problem. The baby shower was in 18 hours, and I had no idea how to pretend everything was fine when my world had just shattered completely. The baby shower started exactly as I'd feared it would. Half-empty gift table, awkward silences, and family members shooting glances toward the conspicuously absent Melissa. Mom had been calling her all morning with no response, And the tension in our living room was thick enough to cut with the cake knife nobody seemed interested in using. David's family had arrived from Portland with genuine excitement and beautiful gifts, which only highlighted how strange my side of the family was acting. My cousin Ashley kept asking where Melissa was, since she'd promised to help with decorations. Aunt Patricia made passive-aggressive comments about how some people don't appreciate family effort, while eyeing the modest pile of presents with obvious disappointment. I'd spent the morning setting up the recovered items in the nursery, trying to process the emotional whiplash of having my stolen property returned just hours before the celebration. The crib looked perfect in the corner we'd planned for it, but every time I looked at it, I remembered Kevin's embarrassed face as he helped me disassemble the life his family had unknowingly built with my daughter's things. Grandmother Rose arrived fashionably late with her signature dramatic flair, immediately commenting on the sparse decorations and asking why there weren't more people present. "Where's that artistic sister of yours?" she demanded, settling into the best chair with her purse clutched like a weapon. "She promised to do something special for the shower." That's when I realized I had to tell them. The weight of keeping Melissa's betrayal secret was crushing me, and watching my family worry about her absence while being disappointed in me felt like a special kind of torture. I couldn't pretend everything was normal when nothing would ever be normal again. I stood up in the middle of gift opening, my hands trembling as I faced the room full of people who'd come to celebrate our baby. "I need to tell you all something about Melissa," I began, my voice shaking. "She's not here because she's been stealing from us." The room went dead silent. David moved closer to me, his hand finding mine as I pulled out my phone and opened the Amazon purchase history that had become evidence of my sister's elaborate deception. For the past 6 weeks, Melissa has been redirecting gifts from our baby registry to her boyfriend's apartment, her friend's house, and a storage unit she's been renting. Everything you've bought for our baby she's been taking and giving away or keeping for herself. Mom's face went white. "That's impossible, Sarah. Melissa would never." She told Marcus that I was being greedy and materialistic, that family members were asking her to return duplicate gifts because they felt guilty about the cost. I continued, the words spilling out like a dam had burst. She convinced Rachel and Kevin that I was having money problems and needed help returning excess items. She's been playing all of us against each other while stealing thousands of dollars worth of baby gear. I showed them the screenshots, the delivery addresses, the timeline of theft that had been happening right under our noses, while Melissa convinced everyone that I was the problem. Uncle Jim grabbed his phone and started scrolling through his own Amazon account, his face growing dark as he found the confirmation email for the car seat he'd bought that had supposedly been delivered to our house. "I got the delivery notification," he said slowly. "It said the package was delivered to your front door on Tuesday, but you're saying it never came here. It went to an apartment on Maple Street, to her secret boyfriend that none of us knew existed," I explained, feeling exhausted and hollow. "She's been using our family's love and generosity to furnish her fantasy life, while making everyone think I was ungrateful and demanding." Aunt Patricia's mouth hung open as she processed the information. "She told me you'd asked for too much, that people were struggling to afford your registry items. She said she was trying to help manage the situation diplomatically so nobody's feelings would get hurt." The room erupted in angry voices as family members started connecting the dots, realizing how they'd been manipulated and used. Mom sat in stunned silence, tears streaming down her face as she stared at the evidence on my phone screen. Grandmother Rose was furious, demanding to know where Melissa was so she could, quote, "give that girl a piece of her mind." David's mother, who'd been quietly observing the chaos, spoke up with gentle authority. "Sarah, what do you need from us right now? How can we help fix this?" That simple question broke something open in my chest. While my family was processing their anger and embarrassment, David's family was focused on supporting us and making things right. It was a stark contrast that highlighted just how toxic the dynamics had become on my side. "I've already recovered most of the stolen items," I said, wiping away tears I didn't realize I'd been crying. Marcus and Kevin both helped me get everything back once they understood what had really happened. But I don't know how to move forward with Melissa. I don't know how to trust anyone in our family again. Mom finally found her voice, broken and small. "Sarah, I'm so sorry. I believed her when she said you were being unreasonable. I even defended her to other people, told them she was just looking out for your best interests. I feel like such a fool. The admission was both validating and heartbreaking. For weeks, I'd felt crazy and selfish, wondering if maybe I really was asking for too much, expecting too much, taking advantage of family generosity. Learning that Melissa had systematically poisoned everyone against me while stealing from us felt like being gaslit on an industrial scale. David suggested we call the police, but I wasn't ready for that level of confrontation. The legal implications felt overwhelming when I was already struggling to process the emotional devastation. Instead, I called Melissa one final time, putting the phone on speaker so everyone could hear her response. She answered on the first ring, her voice bright and fake. "Sarah? I'm so sorry I'm missing your shower. I had a family emergency with Marcus and couldn't get away. How's everything going?" The audacity of continuing to lie when she knew I'd discovered everything was breathtaking. "Melissa, I know about the storage unit. I know about Marcus's apartment. I know about Rachel's house. I've recovered all the stolen items, and I have the Amazon purchase history proving everything." The line went quiet for a long moment before she started laughing. The same cold sound I'd heard from her for weeks whenever she criticized my registry. "You're so dramatic, Sarah. I was trying to help you manage a situation that was getting out of hand. People were complaining about how expensive your registry was, and I thought if I could consolidate some of the duplicate items." "There were no duplicates," I interrupted, my voice stronger than I felt. "You redirected original purchases from family members who trusted you. You convinced people I was greedy while you were literally stealing from my unborn daughter." "Everything I did was for this family," she snapped, her mask finally slipping completely. "You've always been the golden child, the one who got everything handed to her. College, career, perfect husband, perfect house. Now you want everyone to worship you for getting pregnant like you're the first woman in history to have a baby." The room was dead silent as my family heard Melissa's true feelings for the first time. Years of resentment and jealousy poured out in a torrent of accusations and self-pity that revealed the depth of her hatred for my happiness. "I deserve some of those things too," she continued, her voice rising to a shriek. "I deserve to have nice things for when Marcus and I start our family. I deserve to be celebrated and supported, instead of watching everyone fall all over themselves to buy you expensive garbage you don't even need." Uncle Jim reached over and hung up the phone, his face grim. "That's enough," he said quietly. "Nobody needs to hear any more of that poison." The baby shower resumed after that, but the energy had completely shifted. Instead of disappointment and awkward tension, the room filled with genuine warmth and determination to make things right. David's family shared stories about overcoming difficult relatives, offering perspective and support. My family members started making plans to replace gifts they'd bought that had been stolen, treating it like a community effort to ensure our daughter had everything she needed. Grandmother Rose appointed herself the family spokesperson for dealing with Melissa, declaring that girl was no longer welcome at family gatherings until she made full restitution and underwent serious therapy. Mom cried through most of the remaining celebration, apologizing repeatedly for not seeing through Melissa's manipulation sooner. The most surprising moment came when Ashley announced that she'd never actually thought my registry was excessive, that Melissa had been privately messaging family members for weeks, planting seeds of doubt about my intentions and financial situation. "She made it seem like you and David were struggling but too proud to ask for help," Ashley explained. "She convinced everyone that buying from your registry was enabling some kind of materialistic spiral." The systematic nature of the manipulation was stunning. Melissa hadn't just stolen gifts. She'd orchestrated an entire campaign to undermine my relationships and reputation, while positioning herself as the concerned sister, trying to manage a difficult situation. The level of premeditation made it feel less like sibling rivalry and more like psychological warfare. 3 months later, when baby Emma arrived healthy and perfect, Melissa was notably absent from the hospital visits and family celebrations. She'd moved out of her studio apartment without leaving a forwarding address, apparently having decided that burning bridges was easier than facing the consequences of her actions. Mom still gets upset sometimes, wondering where we went wrong as a family, how someone she raised could be capable of such calculated cruelty. I've learned to set boundaries around those conversations, focusing instead on the family we're building with David and Emma, surrounded by people who show up with genuine love instead of hidden agendas. The storage unit stood as a monument to Melissa's deception for months until the rental company finally cleaned it out for non-payment. Sometimes I wonder if she ever thinks about the damage she caused, the relationships she destroyed, the trust she shattered for the sake of a few $1,000s worth of baby gear. But mostly, I'm grateful that Emma will grow up knowing the difference between people who love unconditionally and people who love with strings attached. The hardest lesson was learning that sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones we've loved longest, and that protecting our peace sometimes means walking away from family who refuse to choose healing over hatred. 2 years have passed since that devastating baby shower, and Emma is now a thriving toddler who fills our home with laughter and chaos in the best possible way. The nursery we fought so hard to complete has been transformed into a big girl room, decorated with art projects and stuffed animals that have been earned through love rather than manipulation. I still think about Melissa sometimes, especially during family holidays when her absence creates an uncomfortable silence around the dinner table. Mom received one letter from her about 18 months ago, a rambling justification that blamed everyone except herself for the situation. She claimed she'd been trying to teach me humility, that I'd needed to learn not to take family generosity for granted. Even in her apology, she couldn't take responsibility for the calculated cruelty of her actions. The most healing part of this experience has been watching Emma grow up, surrounded by genuine love from people who choose to be in our lives because they want to be there, not because they feel obligated. David's family has embraced their role as grandparents and aunts and uncles with wholehearted joy. My own family, chastened by their experience with Melissa's manipulation, has worked hard to rebuild trust and show up authentically. Uncle Jim started a college fund for Emma as his way of making amends for believing Melissa's lies about our financial situation. Aunt Patricia volunteers to babysit whenever we need a date night, determined to prove that family support doesn't come with hidden agendas or secret resentments. Mom has gone to therapy to understand how she enabled Melissa's behavior for so many years, and our relationship has actually grown stronger through honest conversations about boundaries and accountability. The Amazon purchase history that revealed Melissa's betrayal now feels like a gift in disguise. It showed me who I could really count on when things got difficult, and it forced our family to confront dynamics that had been toxic for years. Emma will grow up in a family that chooses honesty over peacekeeping, authentic love over performative loyalty. Sometimes people ask if I miss Melissa, if I ever consider reaching out to rebuild our relationship. The answer is complicated, because I miss the sister I thought I had, but I've accepted that person never really existed. The real Melissa was always calculating, always resentful, always keeping score of who had what and whether she was getting her fair share. I've learned that family isn't just about shared blood or childhood memories. Family is about people who show up consistently, who celebrate your joy without needing to diminish it, who support your dreams without demanding payment in return. Emma is surrounded by that kind of family now, and she'll never have to question whether someone's love comes with strings attached. The stolen baby registry taught me that sometimes the most precious gifts aren't the ones that arrive in Amazon boxes, but the ones that come wrapped in difficult truths that force you to see people clearly. Melissa tried to steal my joy, but instead she gave me clarity about what really matters and who deserves a place in our lives. Today, our home is filled with items chosen with love, given freely, and received with gratitude. Emma's toys tell stories of birthday visits from grandparents who adore her, holiday gifts from aunts and uncles who compete to make her smile, and everyday treasures from friends who've become chosen family. Every single thing in her room represents a relationship built on trust and genuine affection. The best revenge against someone who tried to steal your happiness is building a life so full of authentic joy that their absence becomes irrelevant. Emma will never know the toxicity that Melissa brought to our family, because she's growing up surrounded by people who understand that love isn't a competition, and family isn't a zero-sum game. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.